So the food and ag tech space has gone through a big shakeup in recent years. But just to start, Matthew, what's getting you excited about investing right now? What kind of technologies?
So many things across the supply chain. I think, so just briefly, I'm with S2G Investments, and we are a multi-stage investor in food and agriculture, energy, and seafood, oceans, and water. I focus my time on food and agriculture investing, and that's across the supply chain. Right now, we're very excited about the human health aspect of the food system. There's a lot of talk about GLP-1. I think there's a broader conversation around the convergence between the food system and the healthcare system, and an understanding that it's not just drugs, but lifestyle interventions, including nutrition, that can optimize human health. And there's a lot of opportunity for the food system to provide real solutions that lead to lasting health impact. We're excited about that space. We're very excited about financial services in the ag space as enabling technologies for some of the practices that I think the consumer would certainly like to see in the soil. We're excited about technologies that are driving resilience and adaptability on the ag side.
So we're going to pull up a chart right now and look at how deal exits in food and beverage have really kind of fallen a bit. So Ashley, I know you've said this is a necessary, painful but necessary process. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've definitely seen just a shakeup in the entire venture market, and food is no different. So food flows from there, but it's a correction across all VC, and we have to be mindful of why that happened. And I think there are two reasons that we see in the food industry that happened. One is companies were getting funded and funded to large extents without product market fit yet. And so when you see a pullback and you don't have product market fit, it's really hard to be capital efficient and raise capital if you haven't figured out your unit economics yet. And then two, I think what we saw back in kind of 2020, 2021 was a lot of technologies getting funded that weren't quite ready for venture capital dollars, and it was much too early. So I know we talked about kind of cell-based meat, getting funded with venture dollars and not exactly food dollars. Those are kind of more tourist investors, maybe they were tech investors, and expected a very different growth profile than what we saw was achievable and accurate over time. And so then you just kind of saw a pullback in the market. But I do think at the end of the day, that is a healthy correction. Like, companies should be built with capital efficiency, especially in the food industry. They should be built on healthy fundamentals. And our motto internally is discipline comes with constraints. And so when you put constraints and capital around a company, they do figure it out and build more sustainable and durable companies over time.
So Matthew, you've said you've shaken up your priority list and looking more for convenience, affordability, and taste, maybe impact and sustainability a little bit lower down on that list. Can you talk about the priority list?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the chart that you had up there. I think we were in a zero rate environment previously, and I think there were a host of business models and technologies that required massive capital investment, but entering into massive markets and with the potential for real blocking IP. And in those markets, I think there was an idea that if you can win the race there, if you can get to a commercially viable product and establish that product market fit, you can own the right to sell to some portion of the market, and it would all be worth it in a zero rate environment. I think obviously we are not in that environment anymore. Things have changed. I also think the market was making some assumptions around consumer flexibility and supply chain adaptability that I think were proven to be a little bit too ambitious. I think a lot of investors and the market in general assumed that a consumer would pay a green premium, or a supply chain participant would allow for some sort of green premium, and that environmental sustainability as a driver or core pillar of a product or solution was acceptable. And as a perhaps secondary or other primary pillar, nutrition. and then the consumer would give you a pass if it was more expensive or it didn't taste quite as good, or it was more difficult to prepare in some way, shape, or form. And I just don't think that is played out. And so we really focus on the consumer focuses on taste, affordability, convenience. Those are the highest order. And then I think perhaps as a secondary consideration, nutrition, meaning it has to also taste good and it has to be affordable and convenient. And then environmental, the sort of impact aspect of the product. And I think in many cases, we're looking for a green discount. Certainly as you move toward the ag space, it has to be the case that you have an intervention that allows for the farmer to do more with less. Mm-hmm. And in doing more with less, you produce some sort of positive environmental externality, environmental benefit as an externality.
So Ashley, you have an investment in a peptide supplement company. I think a lot of people here might be, what the heck is that? So can you explain how that company works and how, as an investor, are you thinking about GLP-1s right now?
Yeah, I think everyone in this room is thinking about GLP-1s. We've seen that throughout every conversation. Our company is a company called Lumbus. It's very early. It's an ingredient technology. They produce a peptide that they have discovered via a proprietary database and using AI to come to market with multiple peptides. And the peptide can simulate kind of GLP-1 usage or GLP-1 production in your gut. It is not as effective as a GLP-1. It is not intended to be as effective as a GLP-1. But I think consumers are looking for all types of weight solutions. GLP-1s are one tool in that toolbox. It is not certainly the only tool. And this is another addition to help you, improve your satiety in your gut through food in a natural process. And so we're excited about them coming to market, hopefully soon. They're still in development. But that's kind of how we think about GLP-1s more broadly, is great tool, but now what do we do when we have this behavior change? And I think there are so few moments in your kind of whole life where you can actually change your behavior, and a GLP-1 is a great tool for that. And then it's what happens after that. How do you shift your consumption rather than, are they going to impact the food industry? It's more the how, not the what.
So Matthew, let's talk about protein. Protein is seemingly dumped in everything right now. Cereal, lattes, but I think...
Condiments.
Yeah, you are interested in protein in meat.
Who would have thought, right?
Yeah, right? So what in your consumer data is showing that this is where people want their protein in meat and in a convenient form?
Well, as a consumer myself, I like to eat meat. And I think, I sort of say that flippantly, but I think people seem to forget that at times. And I think protein is the hero ingredient of the moment. And I think it has its staying power. I mean, there is an element of satiety that comes along with eating protein. And so, controlling your diet and consumption. People on GLP-1s are told to optimize for protein and fiber. I don't think the experience of optimizing for fiber is as enjoyable or as natural as the experience of optimizing for protein. And I think the most natural form that most of us are familiar with is in meat. And this is if you think about it, $1 trillion global market. This is not something that is new. There are opportunities now where taste, affordability, and convenience principally are very much on trend in meat. And so that's an area that we're excited about, convenience snacking in meat, new form factors and the like, because people know that they're getting protein from meat. People like to eat meat. They don't need to be educated about what they're eating when they're eating meat. I think there are certainly certain products where people naturally expect to be getting protein. I think it's becoming table stakes to have protein fortification across a lot of categories. And I think the reality is with a lot of those products, you have formulation issues. I don't want to say issues. You have formulation that you have to focus on. You have to focus on consumer education. There might be regulatory barriers that you have to get through. Whereas with meat, people are accustomed to eating meat. And we see this as a massive market, and there is room to grow. Even if the market itself doesn't grow, I think there's significant room for share gains. People are trading down from beef to chicken.
Well, that was my next question. Beef is expensive. Anyone who goes to the grocery store right now knows that. Do you see the future actually being in better for you chicken?
I do. I think we're already seeing it now. I think a family can transition from purchasing beef to purchasing organic, expensive forms of chicken and still save money. It's the lean protein of the moment, and people feel like they're making a healthy choice when they select chicken. Chicken also just beef has significant headwinds right now that we expect to last for several years. I mean, this is the smallest herd that we've had since 1951. And if you were a farmer right now, the decision between raising and breeding versus taking to harvest is not that difficult of a decision, and people are taking to harvest. And so we don't expect a real increase in that herd to take hold for several years into the future. Whereas, chicken, there's a healthy supply of chicken. And chicken is more affordable than beef. Chicken is more environmentally sustainable. If you look at the feed conversion ratios, 6+ times beef, less than 2 times for poultry. And we see a lot of tailwind for that product category broadly.
Actually, let's talk about gut health. You have an investment that is focused on the microbiome. Can you talk about how that works and what you see the investment potential there?
Yeah, so Matt touched on fiber, which is very much tied onto your gut. When we look at kind of more just taking a step back and looking broadly at what we're excited about, it's really kind of the convergence of 3 trends. It's 1, health as identity. I think consumers are now just identifying themselves with their health and their healthy habits. 2, this behavior change, as I mentioned, with GLP-1s. And then 3, this introduction of AI and how that can help you kind of personalize your nutrition and how you, operate within your health. So those are kind of like the 3 trends that we are thinking about at a high level. I think the microbiome, though, has so much promise to actually tell us so much about our health, but we have very little data that actually shows cause and effect of what happens when you consume food, when you take drugs, when you are, sick. We just don't have that kind of, real cause and effect relationships. We don't understand those biomarkers. So the company that we're invested in is a company called BiomeSense. They are a foundational microbiome platform that basically is vertically integrated. They have a device that goes next to your toilet. It takes 30 days of microbiome tests. It stores that on device, and then it measures time series data. So you can really understand what happens to your microbiome over time, because your microbiome is really not like your DNA, which you take once and is your DNA today, tomorrow, and in the future. Your microbiome changes over time. So then they leverage that to really mine that for biomarkers to understand how we can now improve our microbiome and why we are, seeing the results we're seeing from our own health. So we think of that as a really interesting layer on top of the other biomarker measurements that we have access to. We have more frequent blood tests. We are able to have our Oura rings that can measure our sleep. We have all these, 8 Sleep can tell us how we're sleeping. Like, we have all these ways to personalize our health that our microbiome is just going to be another way to do so.
We're going to move to questions soon, so get ready. Matthew, you're also, S2G is invested in a lawn care company, Sunday. First of all, why? Why lawn care? And also, how does it use AI in a unique way?
Yeah, we're very excited about that business. It's a consumer lawn care business. You should check it out, getsunday.com. Most of what we invested on the ag side is in the commercial production side of agriculture. And this was a unique opportunity for us to invest at the retail and consumer side. This is a business that has one of the largest soil sample databases in the country, because they have several 100,000+ customers that provide a soil sample. And what they do is they understand what's in the soil in your particular yard. You don't have to have a green thumb. It's for people who don't have a green thumb predominantly. and they will deliver all of the inputs and interventions that you need to optimize your lawn to your door. And they will also help you understand when to apply. If there's a weather event, how do you change your application regime? How do you can take a picture and say, I have a pest here. What's going on with this discoloration in my grass? They can help you with all of those things. One of the things that we like about, a couple of things that we very much like about this business, the incumbency, this is a massive market, and the incumbency is very much not just do it yourself, but figure it out yourself. And a majority or plurality of new homeowners at this point are not necessarily next to their parents or a green thumb, and they're looking for some advice and some stewardship. And that's what this business can provide. We just see that there's massive opportunity for inflection in a market that doesn't really establish a relationship with the consumer. And AI in particular helps Sunday to do that, because in every case, this is a system that learns your preferences, understands what's going on in your yard, can monitor the weather for you, can monitor other patterns that are relevant to your yard, can help you if you want to start gardening or things like that, and understand that you have pets, and you don't want certain inputs in your yard around your pets, or your children are going to be playing in the yard. And it can build a relationship with you over time. We see a lot of direct-to-consumer or subscription businesses where that aspect of the business is good for the company because it helps them for things like forecasting with shipping and procurement and the like, but it's not necessarily good for the consumer. This is a scenario where we very much think that that relationship that is established is better for the consumer, because you learn about their needs over time and develop that deeper connection.
So not lawn care advice, but does anyone have questions here? All right. I think a mic runner is coming over there. Yep.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Allison Beadle, and I'm with Wild Hive. We're a food, agriculture, and nutrition marketing agency. And I'm curious, you both just spoke about products that are related to personalization, right? One on the lawn care front, really personalizing the care of an individual's yard. And then on the microbiome front, personalizing what you know about your own microbiome. So I'm curious to hear from both of you what you foresee happening in the future with regard to personalization, broadly speaking, with regard to food and agriculture, given what's happening in AI and the ability to drill down to the personalized level.
I'll just say just two things. Number one, like as I sort of was saying it, that AI, I do think, enables a set of use cases that allow for a personalized relationship. I don't know that all of the products are individualized. If you have a set, if you have a catalog, I think you can help a customer understand how to pick from within that catalog. But I'm not sure that we're going to see a lot of N of one type products developed just because of AI. And then I think personalization as an engagement tool, we're very heavily focused on the human health aspect of the food system. And I do think AI-based tools and personalization will allow a member of a healthcare plan, for instance, to more easily engage with the medical community. And that is something that saves the medical community quite a lot of money. And one of the ways that we're seeing that engagement happen is through delivery of meals and personalized meal kits and the like. We're invested in a business called Pix Health that is doing that right now. We expect to see more of that in the future, and some of that is enabled with AI-based tools.
Ashley, in 45 seconds, how about you?
I agree with a lot of what Matt said. I do think we are going to see an explosion in N of one testing on our own health and using AI and our own biomarkers to determine what is right for us, and leveraging data sets to then push that into kind of the future and be our own health advocates and take control of our own health, which I think is really exciting. We have one company called People Science that is a clinical trial platform for functional food and alternative medicine that enables just that. It's like, okay, this product has a claim, does that actually work on me, and can I figure that out? So you can use it on yourself, or if you're a brand or a company that's doing testing, you can use that like you would a pharma product. So we think that's extraordinarily exciting.